All right. So next up, and I think I'm sharing my screen still. We're going to talk about motivation with Jeramie Davis, Digital Learning and Professional Development Coordinator, and Andrea Cook, Digital Learning Coordinator, and Joe Jarrett, Digital Learning Coordinator from Kansas City Public Schools in Missouri. Super excited to have them with us today. And I have your picture up here. I think you guys are going to also share a screen, right? But I had an argument earlier, Andrea, with which one on the picture was Jeramie and which was Joe, because I couldn't remember. I kind of know which one was you, though.
Easy to pick out.
But you could fake me out and go, no, I'm the one in the forefront. No,
I'm actually Jeramie.
That's funny. Well, listen, we have a thing we've been talking about with regards to motivation by looking under the hood of what motivates people in the first place. And different people are motivated by different things, recognition and, being the leader of things and like And different kids some kids are just motivated by affinity. They just like other people. They want to be around other people. So they kind of wilted when we were on lockdowns, right? So we want to hear from you guys about really what you have been doing to sort of lead motivation from all the dimensions that you have going on. So you guys give us the big intro and your talk on motivation. This is going to be fun. And then I'll poke in with other questions. Is that cool?
Sure. So we didn't get the memo per se about motivation. So we didn't build a presentation around motivation, but we might be able to squeeze some things in there about it.
Okay, good. Well, pretty much anything that you're doing that's to get organized.
Sure. So our motivation
is going to contribute, right? Yeah.
Sure. So we're going to share with you kind of our digital transformation the last 3 years being in an urban school district.
Awesome.
And especially what that looked like during the pandemic in an urban school district.
Okay.
Because we know our friends from Blue Valley here and from Fort Zumwalt have similar challenges for sure as we do, but our world looks just slightly different in what we were faced with. So we'll share that and talk about some motivational pieces here.
Okay, cool. And I see your screen, so we're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a bit.ly there. We do provide some of our PD documents and things. So if you want access to that or to look at those closer, or you can always reach out to us if you're looking for some documents or collaboration. I'm sure we've worked with some of you guys before in developing some of this. So that's there if you would like it. So.
Basically, our mission is to empower educators to deliver high quality instruction by fostering a technology-rich environment. This is our mission that we came up with a few years ago, just to, get us all on the right track and to make sure that we were all on the same page. Our strategic plan indicator and everything that we do within our district has to do with our strategic plan that our cabinet has put together in our board of directors. This is our 4th year of our strategic plan, I believe. So we're in our 4th year. And so we have different indicators, and we are on 12.2, where we strengthen the use of technology as a platform for conducting the work of the district and schools in a seamless way. So we always start all of our presentations with the focus. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right, so we, as you already saw in that opening slide, we're the digital learning team. We have not existed as long as the district has been one-to-one. So we've been one-to-one for many years, at least since 2012 is when that started kind of getting rolled out. It was rolled out again without us. We did have a lot of issues getting PD to teachers. I was a teacher back when that one-to-one first got initiated. It was kind of, here's your devices, roll the card into your room, okay, go. So, and then on top of that, not only was not PD provided, but there's also been historical resistance to teachers attending PD. Of course, it's hard to get to them during the day, even harder to get to them outside of the work hours. So we had to find a solution to that. There is very little digital integration into the curriculum as it stood when those devices were distributed. And a lot of that technology was rolled out, but then it kind of stuck around for quite a bit. So all the way up until really these last couple of years, we had those initial things that were, coming up on 5-6 years old. So some of them just weren't working, not to mention they didn't necessarily have a specific function in the classroom. And despite that, we still had a whole bunch of stuff to choose from. So by the time we got our new IT director, they came in and kind of did an audit of what do our teachers have access to. It was over 1,000 different apps. We have Windows devices, Apple devices, we have tablets, various things just kind of floating around the district in different buildings. So we had over 1,000 apps, and just kind of try to tighten that up and bring that back in and actually have teachers use it intentionally was really our big focus in the beginning.
All right, so from that, our team was born, I guess, 3 years ago. And the three of us didn't really understand quite what we were getting into, I guess, at least I didn't. So we spent a lot of time together building teamwork, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, and then developed an action plan thinking that, yeah, we've been one-to-one for about 7 years prior to us. But really, if you walk through our classrooms, there was little evidence that technology was even being used, even in a non-effective way. So our action plan was connecting with external organizations, making sure that Kansas City was represented in the community, working with that curriculum. Nice thing about us is we are in the curriculum department, or the division of academics, whereas a lot of our counterparts that we found are in the IT department. So we kind of bridge that gap between the learning and the actual IT side of the house. Our main job was to start providing coaching and support to teachers, principals, and other staff, getting into the buildings and helping move things. But as we did that, we realized we couldn't really be effective if we didn't put a few things into place. So we started researching technology integration models. We went through TPAC and SAMR, and we really had kind of epiphany of where our teachers, what's wrong?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, where our teachers are, and starting from pretty much the basics. We did over 1,000 walkthroughs based on our model. We created PD. We moved it online. We realized our teachers at the end of the day had faced a lot of secondary trauma that our students are facing, and they were too tired or unmotivated to come. We tried to pay them to come. They wouldn't come. So we decided to move to an online platform to conduct PD in order to motivate those teachers to be able to do PD when they wanted to, which was resounding success. We went to TCEA and got some ideas. We also visited Josh Howard down in Fulton to get some ideas and kind of collaborated with those two places on some of this PD. The other thing that we're going to talk kind of about today that has increased the motivation within our district around technology in itself is creating what we call the digital learning mentors. So each one of our buildings has kind of a point person that communicates with us. So we'll talk about a few of these things here on some subsequent slides.
All right, so this is our baseline data via our walkthroughs. So we had done it, 227 of them at this point. We basically, what we were seeing was how students were using technology, and how the classroom was using technology. So how teachers were using it, how students were using it, and we wanted to see if they were or were they creating. And so we had a walkthrough form, and we've actually put a link on this particular slide deck for you all to have a copy of that. And we just went classroom to classroom, just looking to where they were, just to get a snapshot of where they were as students and as teachers in regards to tech use. You know, were they creating? Were they just sitting around? Whatever. So we took that information and we collected it for almost 6 months, I'd say. And it was really powerful because we did it as a team, which really helped us to actually discuss what we thought we saw, because I may have saw something and Joe may have saw something totally different from what I saw, so we would have, good communication in regards to what we saw in classrooms and how it fell on our pick-rat model, which we'll discuss here shortly. All right.
Yeah, so those walkthroughs were based on the pick-rat model, but kind of as we were doing our walkthroughs, that's when we figured out there really is no way to categorize the technology we're seeing in class using the other models we looked at, SAMR being one of the bigger ones that we tried to adopt for a little bit. Jeramie kind of stumbled upon the pick-rat model, and that is what we ended up using for our district. It's developed by Dr. Kimmons over at BYU, And what we really liked about that was kind of the twofold focus of it's looking at both student use and teacher use. Are the teachers using technology with their students? How are students using that technology on their end? And then it kind of just that three-way break makes it to where there's just a clearer picture of how that tech's being used, without having to get into what's the difference between an A and an M or what have you. So it's just more applicable to what we're doing. It's very easy for teachers to digest. We could give them, some pretty concrete examples of, hey, here's how you can kind of up your technology integration game and walk away with some good data and some good examples for them to start modeling in their own classroom.
And if you want to learn more about the PIC-RAT model, tonight on Facebook, there's going to be a Facebook Live event. It is called EduMatch Group by, I believe her name is Dr. Sarah Thomas. Will be running that tonight. She will be having an interview with Dr. Kimmons tonight to kind of tell you more about the PIC-RAT model. So if you're interested. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Right.
All right, so as stated previously, we were having a lot of trouble getting teachers to show up for PD. So in our district, which is a little different than most districts here in Missouri, is we have AFT as our teachers union, which is a little bit more than just a bargaining unit that most other school districts have. So the rules are quite different in Kansas City and St. Louis when it comes to contract hours and PD and negotiating even. So we have to almost bribe our teachers to come to PD with money, which wasn't really a big motivator at this point. So what we did is we, like I said, traveled to TCEA and traveled down to Fulton, Missouri to visit with Josh Howard, who's now in Columbia, I think, right? To learn kind of about badging. And we were kind of late to the game on the badging piece because there were a lot of examples out there, but we needed something that we can make our own. So what we ended up doing was making our digital learning roadmap, which is, kind of basic on or compared to some other badging programs. We had 4 different pathways that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, from basics to advanced. But where we took a twist on this is we actually developed this in HyperDocs so that we were in control of the content of the PD. And we also put this in Google Classroom, so it was a lot easier for to be able to provide that feedback to teachers. They felt like they had a one-on-one with us. As they submitted their assignments, we could see the examples they used, we could see their learning. We could call them or go visit their classrooms and say, hey, this is what you've done. It's really great. Here's some more things to think about. Or, hey, this is what you put in your document. Can I observe that in your classroom? And it really allowed us to build a relationship with teachers, and which started the whole trust factor, which, in turn, I guess, motivated them to maybe use technology, or at least try to use technology more than what they were. We did pay them actually still to complete this, but since they were allowed to do it whenever they wanted to, outside of the workday, on the weekend, whatever it might have been, we did see a lot more teachers take part in this process. So these were actual real posters. We have stickers. We'd go visit classrooms to make a big deal. We have 36 sites. I don't know, takes 20 to 30 minutes, probably drive from our north to our south end. So we're a very large geographical area. So the 3 of us traveling all over the city, putting a lot of miles on our car, though, was worth it to really try to motivate those teachers any way that we could.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the posters and the stickers and us getting to visit their classrooms. That'd be some level of motivation in and of itself. People have seen us.
Yeah, also the feedback, the individualized feedback on the professional development that each teacher got. So basically what we would do, once a teacher would complete one of the lessons, we should say, or one of the modules, we actually would grade it. And we would tell them, hey, you missed this or missed that or what have you. And we would need you to fix that so that we make sure that you actually understood it before we actually paid out. So we just wanted to make sure that our teachers actually understood. And that's been the difference with our professional development, is actually knowing if the teacher actually understands it or if they're just coming just because they are getting paid. And that's been huge for our district.
Yeah, the last reason, probably not the last, but the last one we'll talk about of putting it in Google Classroom is We didn't really have an LMS in our district. We actually still don't. It is 2021, have an LMS that we subscribe to. So this kind of also twofold allowed our teachers to learn Google Classroom from a student perspective, which increased our usage across the district of teachers understanding the value and importance of Google products, leaving comments on students' assignments. So we really built kind of the efficacy with our teachers from their understanding and their learning.
All right.
So this is just an example of one of our hyperdocs. It's just basic, and this has changed in the last year or so. We just wanted to show you kind of our outline because we did look at several different models. I know that Josh was using, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Save School, so where it plays a video, you answer questions, and you can still leave feedback, but we found that Google Docs, you can put a comment right over their answer and then video conference or go to their classroom. It was just more meaningful and more connected as learners. So the same format pretty much takes place through all of ours. We have probably about 100 different, what we call modules now, where it has some sort of instructions, videos, articles, and then ask some questions or even ask them to provide an artifact. Now that we're in year 3, the artifact is a lesson plan. So we're progressing and evolving this process from just learning the tool to then the next step last year was providing us an artifact. So, hey, Google Slides, you make a slide deck and share it with us, to now make your slide deck, but also include a lesson plan of how you've used it, and maybe some student examples. So we're really monitoring the effectiveness and the use of a lot of these tools, kind of in an intimate way where we still have that relationship we have 1,200 teachers out of the 3 of us. So it does take a lot of time and dedication, but we want to make sure that our teachers aren't numbers, they're people. Just like our students, are people, and really hopefully providing some of that meaningful relationship to them through their learning to get us kind of where we need to be, because we kind of saw ourselves behind the 8 ball in technology, even though we were an early adopter of tech. So.
Also, I want to just comment on how the format of what we have here on the Basics of Online Learning module. As you can see, each step is set up on the left-hand side, and then in the middle, there's an article and a video in the middle, which is linked by the picture and the link as well. And then you have the questions, and then there's a spot for the teacher to answer directly, and it's highlighted for them to answer directly on the hyperdoc. Our goal was to make sure, we call it like the Chick-fil-A model, to make sure everything is always branded the same way. So anything that you see that we create and give out to our teachers, it will always have the same look and feel, no matter what actual thing that we give them. So just wanted to talk about that.
And that's kind of what saved us during the pandemic, which we'll talk about, is our branding and our formats and keeping things the same so our teachers don't have to see several different things and become confused. So.
All right. So one of the other things that, again, kind of helped us out when we went completely remote, and this started well before that, is year 2, we kind of saw a big need for, Jeramie pointed out, we have 36 sites that we're responsible for between the 3 of us, roughly a dozen apiece. And that's a lot of geography to cover, a lot of buildings to cover, a lot of people to cover. So we can't be everywhere at once. How great would it be if we had little mini-me's digital learning reps within the buildings themselves? So that's something we started last year, last academic year, very, very informally. As we tell people, we paid them in tater tots to begin with. Is really just, are you interested in this? Awesome. If so, we'll meet, once a month, whenever we can. Hang out at happy hour. We'll buy y'all some appetizers. We'll talk about digital learning and tech integration and all that good stuff. So the focus was really on teachers who wanted to be part of it. There wasn't like a mandate, put on people or anything like that. Completely volunteer, completely people who are interested in, kind of spreading the word. Not much paid or anything on the other side, aside from just, sharing their love of tech with other folks. Really helped to streamline the communication. So, with a district this large, as you can imagine, the bureaucracy, the communication sometimes does break down from point A to point B to point F to point Z. So just having that direct line of communication with folks within a building to kind of keep them in tune with what's going on in central office was very, very helpful. And it provided opportunities for them to become, further experts. Not only were they already the natural kind of leaders in their building on tech, but by showing that interest, by getting a direct kind of relationship with us, we were able to have some opportunities. We took them to METC last year. because IT was kind enough to help pay their way. So they actually got better at their job as a result of this, and were able to even spread more knowledge to their peers.
Something else to tag on to that is, in order for them to go to this conference, we basically had something for them. They had things that they had to complete, things that they had to do to show that they were really interested in being a digital learning mentor and that they were interested in learning. And another thing that we did in regards to digital learning mentors, when we went to METC, we actually took the Amtrak train together so we could actually take that time to actually build relationships on our way from Kansas City to St. Louis, and kind of to, not only build a relationship, but to discuss, different things that we were going to look at. So we weren't all going to the same thing, and we could kind of, on our way back, kind of talk about what we've learned and build those relationships.
First and last time we're doing that.
Joe wasn't a fan of the Amtrak.
Well, it was some interesting people on the train, but it was a good time.
That's true.
All right, pandemic.
I guess I'll start this, even though I don't want to. So as all of you know, we're all affected by the pandemic. We were actually with Brent Catlett over in Kansas learning about some iPads. We got the call on a Thursday to rush back to central office to have this conversation about what to do for the pandemic. So we pretty much canceled school the next day, and we made curriculum packets and stuffed them for a week and mailed 15,000 packets in the mail that were 100 pages apiece, and wasn't our idea, but we helped. But from that, in the background, we started to make dozens of online modules, both over digital learning tools, as well as curriculum-based tools or curriculum ideas. We paused for 2 weeks, maybe. Teachers paused, we think, maybe for 2 weeks on learning with the packets, and we did specific PD for those teachers. We taught all the principals, all 36 of them, how to use Google Classroom, and what we did was provided the actual HyperDoc PD into their Google Classrooms, which they had their teachers sign up for. So it was more of a district-centered or centric model at that point. But a lot of districts that we've talked to didn't really offer their teachers a lot, if any, PD, which we were kind of surprised about. I have lots of friends in surrounding districts outside Kansas City, and they, the PD opportunities weren't there in a lot of cases. And we thought it was really important to make sure, we did have really good turnout on our online PD, but now we're about to transition how we completely teach. It's time for us to really focus on it. So, first time we had required PD for a long time, which went really well. We held live office hours, 6 hours a day. We were booked for a couple of weeks, just there to, how do I sign into Google? How do I get a Google Doc? And we could do breakout rooms and, teach what we needed to. We had our mentors come in and help with that as well. Did lots of live PD. So we do have people that like to learn their own, but we also have people that like to see our face. So all the modules that we built, we also did several live PD sessions through Zoom.
Also did Facebook Live sessions.
We did a couple of Facebook Lives, over Bitmoji. That was a lot of fun. But I think what put us in a different spot than a lot of districts is almost half of our kids don't have reliable internet at home. And for us, that was 7,000 hotspots. Just as comparison, the suburbs, I think it was quoted in an article that Lee Summit, who's a pretty affluent suburb, has about 17,000 kids, and they handed out about 100 hotspots. That was early article. I'm not sure if that number has changed or not for them, but we're at 7,000. So it took a lot of time to find those hotspots, to get them in, to get the bid, approved by the board. So we were kind of behind on allowing students or getting students reliable internet. And there were a lot of issues with those, even though we got them out, after probably about a month or so it took. But that was an IT thing. They did a good job at that, and we kind of helped facilitate that. And then we really kind of embraced our digital learning mentors a little bit more. We were able to hire more of them and then do specific PD each week. But it really allowed us to, again, to have that communication of, what are you hearing from your peers? What are you seeing from your building? What is your principal asking for? So that we could really almost give individualized attention to buildings and where their teachers were. So we'll talk about a few of these things through the pandemic, but we felt we were really pretty well prepared because of the model we had adopted prior, and got our teachers kind of used to that online PD platform. Whereas if we didn't have any of that in place, COVID would have hit us a lot harder than it did.
Yeah, it was a much easier pivot had it been if we started from scratch, on March 12th, whatever that date ended up being. So to take it from the roadmap or district level, completely online PD to just have to kind of turnkey that to the individual administrators where they're just doing their own, building-wide PD using the digital roadmap and Google Classroom, all that kind of stuff was far, far easier than it would have been otherwise. So we kind of got lucky on that, if a pandemic could ever be, lucky occurrence, but we were much better shape than we would have been if we came, 12 months earlier.
Pretty much before the pandemic, a year before the pandemic, we were having all of our PD was in person, and we were seeing about 1% of our teachers in that professional development. We started the modules at the beginning of the school year of 1920, and before pre-pandemic, about 30% of our teachers had done some part of one of our modules, had at least completed at least one module. So it had made a huge difference before COVID, because if you have 30% who have already have some kind of idea of how to do things online or to complete professional development online, that really helps. So that really helped us quite a bit. So when the pandemic hit, we already had a blueprint of what to do.
Hey, blueprint.
Blueprint, there it is. Okay, so basically what we did was took all of our professional developments, also with our curriculum departments, used the curriculum content, and we built hyperdocs for everything that we pretty much do within our district. So each day we had a different content. We had a digital content, a curriculum content, and a lesson planning session for teachers to actually learn the content, integrate it with tech, and lesson plan. So we did that each day for 2 weeks, so that each particular grade level got the type of digital learning and curriculum content that they needed within that 2-week time period that they were off as far as teaching, I should say. And then was Friday cadre? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes, on Friday they did cadre. So all the different schools would pair up with another school, and they would actually work together to discuss how they were going to create lesson plans.
Yeah, they would get together, which was a lot of work on the back end to pair schools and grade levels and get the meeting link set up. But it really gave them an opportunity to say, hey, we learned about Flipgrid this week. What were your ideas that you put in your lesson plans? And how can we collaborate on, we're both kindergarten teachers. What content can we make this with? These documents went to principals, as you can see. So we made videos on how to use things, how to put them in classroom. They're all force copied. These are things that we could share with you if anyone needed or were interested. These just a few examples of things that we had made. But one thing that really saved us was the format that Andrea talked about, the Chick-fil-A or McDonald's format where everything looks the same and tastes the same no matter where you go, really saved us, because we were able to go to our curriculum folks and say, hey, you're the math coordinator. Here's some things that we need for math PD. And they were able just to pretty much plug and play into our format already, which teachers were already used to, which I think the next slide is kind of what we gave our teachers. So we gave our teachers very simple. This looks very much like our roadmap that you might be are familiar with from earlier presentation, but it told the teachers exactly what they were going to learn and when in a poster that they were already familiar with, in the document that they had already seen. So we felt changing things up on them would be a really disastrous idea, and changing how we've done things in the past. So that's where we're really fortunate to be able to continue the work that we had done for the betterment of our district, to prepare them to actually teach our children more effectively in a virtual setting.
And then I'll think it's coming up later, but kind of based on that blueprint move too, that wasn't necessarily our intent, but kind of semi-intentional, is it also makes all this PD just forever available to the teachers to go back and look at. So it's really convenient. Go back when we were in person, and in person 100%, all our PD was live PD, over at our PD building. It'd be, we'll do Google Basics, then this, then that, repeat for quarter 2, repeat for quarter 3, so on and so forth. So this actually lets us kind of evolve to where we're past the basics now. If you need it, awesome. We're here to support you, but here's that document to go through and train yourself on it as well. Again, we'll help out if needed, but we can actually move forward as a district with getting deeper and deeper to the resources, start talking about the true integration of these resources with their core resources, and really move on from a PD standpoint.
I continue.
Yeah, I'll talk about this one too.
Kind of your idea.
So yeah, that's one of the things, as Andrea also said, is we had about a third of our teachers already went through this roadmap in some capacity. So we really wanted to make sure, obviously, all teachers kind of have a baseline level of knowledge on how to use Google Classroom, how to use all these different things. That was going to be our predominant push for our online learning. But at the same time, us all being former educators, we don't want to force anybody ever to have to sit through PD they've already gone through or anything that's irrelevant to them. So we kind of had this test out method, which was new for this as well. So you still get credit for it. Your principal's not going to get mad at you. If you already know this, or if you've already done this, go ahead and skip down to the bottom. We still need an artifact from you to prove it. So, trust but verify. But it was also, it's a way to get that, I said earlier, we had a kind of a history of PD leaving a bad taste in teachers' mouths. So it's kind of the ways to avoid that. Because one of the big things of teachers, again, sitting through irrelevant PD or redundant PD, just lets them avoid both those things. If they know it, awesome, show us. Go on about your day, move on to the next thing.
Yeah, so this was something that really saved our relationships with teachers during a pandemic when they were already frightened about everything coming down. Is, hey, you've already done Flipgrid or whatever it is. You've already made your lesson plan. You've already turned in the roadmap assignment. Just prove to your principal you've done it, like Joe said. So it's really coming at it from a teacher perspective and teacher-centric PD, to put ourselves in their shoes. And I think Joe alluded to this of, not making them do things that they already know how to do, which I know all of us probably have sat through PD where we've probably could have done something better with our time, or it could have been an email. So that's one thing that we're constantly thinking about is what will our teachers think of this? All of our PD, every single one at the bottom has a feedback form for, hey, was this helpful? Your artifact you made, were you able to use it in the classroom? How can we make this better? So we really kind of put ourselves in the trenches of, we're not perfect. We don't expect you to be perfect when you're teaching. We just expect you to try the best that you can. And if you need help, reach out for it. So I think our relationships, we stuck together quite well as a district, versus some other stories that I've heard from our surrounding metro area. So,
and that feedback form is basically how this work took place, is because we had teachers who were going, hey, we already know how to use Flipgrid. We've been using it for 3 years. Why do we have to go through this same professional development again? So yeah, it's been very helpful.
And from that, we developed a blank template pretty much of, hey, go do your own PD, include a video that you watched, include an article you found, how we used whatever you were researching in your classroom, which was a nice thing for a lot of teachers, especially our Explo teachers or our art teachers, etc., where sometimes they don't fit into, you have to learn the math program. And, art teachers are sitting in the back of the room thinking, oh my goodness, I'm doing this again. Where I was able, go explore some art resources and kind of build your own template around it. So we really tried to make sure all teachers were included. We even trained our paras, I think. So our paras were able to help out. Our principals kind of looked through some of these things to make sure that they were prepared. So it really was a whole district effort for these couple of weeks. And it didn't stop after 2 weeks. It continued, but it was a really big push. So.
What now?
What's up? What now?
Well, what now? Hey, I think right now, our goal is just to re-envision PD in an urban school district. And that's what our goal was before the pandemic. And now we want to see that keep, we have such, I get so tied up on my words, but we have so much momentum. And basically, we just want to try to continue that momentum around digital resources and integration into curriculum. So our goal now is to make sure that teachers not only understand tech, but that they understand how it can make learning better. It's just a tool. It's not about the tech. It's really more about, learning, but we want to make sure that you know how to use it effectively.
Talk about that.
Yeah, and one of the things, we keep on talking about is of course we all want to be back in person and all that good stuff, but we don't want to completely say we're back in person. So, goodbye Zoom, goodbye Teams, all that. We want to be able to use these virtual interfaces to get to teachers. It makes everything so much more readily available. So we definitely want to take the good that came from this and move forward with this. That's part of the momentum. And just, another example, coincidentally, again, today we had our meeting with one of our resources we have is Pear Deck. It's exponential growth, from year to year when they show us the graphs of teacher usage for various functions of it and whatnot. So we definitely want to keep that going. We don't want teachers to come back in the classroom and say, okay, all this stuff is just for remote learning. We want them to keep on keeping on with it.
Yeah, another one of our resources is Book Creator, which we really enjoy and like. And through this PD, we now have the most certified authors through Book Creator in the entire world.
Yes.
So that's a really big success for our district, because our philosophy in the past has kind of been, let's run around the country and see what everyone else is doing. And no one's really come to Kansas City to see what we're doing. So we kind of put that in our forefront of how could we do something useful to not only us, but to other districts. But even inside of our own district, providing some, if we're talking about motivation, we've been able to motivate some other departments, such as our student services department, specifically our counselors and trauma sensitive clinicians, where they've actually made a roadmap similar to this, all about how to establish a positive classroom environment and to have effective classroom management in an urban setting, which has 12 different assignments. They're a little bit more lengthy than ours, but they can actually work with those trauma sensitive clinicians and get feedback on here's what you're doing in your classroom, here's how you can improve it. Because that's one thing that might be a little bit different in an urban setting is how you manage that classroom, what that looks like. So we're also motivating other departments to create PD in a different way to impact the whole. So the three of us, even though we're PD and digital learning coordinators, we're also over new teachers. So our new teachers in our district will be taking part in that positive classroom environment PD. They have the year to do it, but it's going to hopefully help our retention issue, which I know a lot of our districts around us are also facing. I heard you guys when you popped in talking about even retaining students, which is an issue. So hopefully if we can build better relationships with our families and students, that will help us a lot. And then Joe, if you want to talk about librarians, we're also over librarians. So
we wear many hats. We're under the Office of Professional Learning, which holds a lot of different things, PD, teachers, and librarians. So one of the big things too is the district has been in the works. This is our first year over the library of kind of re-envisioning what the library looks like, really bringing in those 21st century skills, even though we're a fifth of the way through the 21st century, but really bringing in just making it to where the library is a relevant piece of the school day. So it's not just a place you go to check out books, it's actually a place to go to be creative, to learn how to do your research, to be a good digital citizen, all those things. That's a big piece of what we're going to be moving forward with as well.
Yeah, and so as to the point of motivation, what we haven't really been able to do yet, but this might spark that interest for us, is to really talk about motivation with our teachers from the student perspective, or to measure that somehow. I know that you guys were talking about how many kids are showing up versus aren't showing up, which you can just go do some observations and see the teachers that are using tech effectively, their classes are full. The teachers that aren't using it effectively, no one shows up. But to really quantify that, to see if this did have any effect on student motivation, it's definitely, though, affected our teachers to try to be better and to do the best they can, and really trust us. So.
Yes, and we also included on our list of feedback form, and we would appreciate if you all would fill it out and let us know how we did today so we can actually sharpen our skills. Remember, iron sharpens iron, so we would appreciate that. And you can reach out to us anyway via email or Facebook, Twitter, smoke signal. We'll take all that. So we really appreciate your time today. We really appreciate you inviting us. We are humbled that you would even ask us. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, well, as Learning Council, we appreciate you guys. We've sort of felt like ever since this all started, being in the middle as a news media and research organization, it's been our honor too, to just get some togetherness going and hear about the trends and what people are doing. So I think if you guys don't mind, we have a few more minutes. I want to ask you some stuff because this is super interesting. So my first question is going to be a funny one. Don't you wish you would have had like just straight up Vulcan mind meld first off?
Okay.
I know it's a Star Trek reference, but I don't know anything other than just Vulcan. So
Yeah. Yeah, because suddenly it was like every teacher had to be on board, like, because, like you just said, motivation relies on the teacher just being completely involved in it, right? Like actually getting their act together. And so, yeah. Well, here's what I love about what you guys have done is that you atomized training so that it was bite sizable, right? Like you could do it. It's approachable. It's not like a big scary mountain. And a really key thing is it doesn't force any individual teacher to do things over and over repetitively. Oh, thank you, Nick. Live long and prosper. Is it like this? Yeah. Okay. Vulcan mind. We are the Edu Jedi Leadership Society also, which is, Star Wars, not Star Trek. So, let's not confuse our things here.
We'll have to Google that later.
Right.
Just like, well, okay. Anyway, so this is where I want to take you to next and just see kind of your reaction and get you thinking about this, because what you did for teachers is where our research and hypotheses with some of the other leaders in the country has gone with what students now need. So what's been done by most places is to blend in the classroom, which is it centers around the teacher as the distribution mechanism. But for PD, you're seeing success with a model that centers on the technology backbone as the direct distribution mechanism to the teachers, who can then self-pace across check sheets, step 1, step 2, step 3, or just go to step 3 because they already got this other stuff covered. So it's very personalized pathways, right? The one thing it maybe doesn't have is what's being now spoken about in hybrid logistics, which is set the auto trigger moments for when there should be small group or whole group. Like automate back in the Walmart greeter, the teacher moment, the thing that is human, rather than all online, okay? Because that's missing in a lot of check sheet oriented learning. That is, watch a video, now take this test, or watch a video, do this essay, blah, 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 read this. That's what the early days of distance learning kind of like proved out. It was like students didn't navigate that very well. They're like, it's boring, there's no humans. You can do this with adults. But what are your thoughts about piloting in a flipped model actually at the student level?
So 2 things to that. First, backing up for a moment is, so I think Joe mentioned earlier that now that a lot of this is our basics, they're kind of out of the way. Here's your document. Now we can focus kind of that live PD, if you will, more on the advanced. But I do like your idea of putting some more human touch into it. So what we are intentional about on that is all of our videos are of us. We didn't take videos necessarily from YouTube and plug them in because we didn't want to lose, seeing our face. And at least Joe and I are not the most enthusiastic video makers. But we thought that was important so they can see us. What we've seen in the classroom, though, from this is a lot of teachers now are at least adopting hyperdocs.
Yeah.
Or they're adopting what we call task menus, which at least gives some kind of a station model feel.
Yeah.
Which, we're not quite there yet, but we have been talking a lot about flipped classroom and flipped models. And so our curriculum department actually has been working on some training and maybe even some online modules for teachers that want to continue this momentum once we're back in a couple of weeks, because we've been virtual for 11 months. We'll be virtual for almost a year. I think 1 week shy of a year when this all settles out, of, how can you continue that momentum and go to the next level? Really being flipped or letting students do some self-exploration versus always being the sage on the stage. Because, research about teacher talk is still, teachers are talking most of the time other than students. And I don't know if either of you would like to input.
Yeah, as we're coming back, it's kind of a graduated roll in. So we're going to be hybrid for a little bit, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, flip. So those kids are going to be straight asynchronous. So we do hope that as teachers are now focused more on that asynchronous work, that will lend itself to, go back to motivation. So motivation to adopt a truly kind of flipped model once we're back to regular school someday. So hopefully it's a Kickstarter for that. I mean, again, coming from the experience they've had so far, hate to think that we come back into the classroom and go backwards when they should be seeing. I mean, even now, our teachers aren't live, 8 hours a day. It's several hours, a small group, whole group, whatever, but then there's a lot of asynchronous work. So they should be seeing, students' engagement with that, which I think for the most part is going kind of okay, as well as we could expect. So to keep that momentum going and move that on to the next level would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part is you guys are at the exact point where the real mutation now occurs.
Mhm.
So and most schools have actually graduated up to this point so far. Some haven't, right? But some of them are actually past it. But the exact point is everyone's blending and they've collapsed the live interaction to a little bit more refined moment, not all lecture. They're doing a lot of asynchronous. And the very next pivot is the real leap. It's the leap to now disaggregate whole group and allow for all individual pathways. But continue with the auto cohorting of smaller groups. So set the paths to auto trigger calendars, because this has been the missing technology in LMSs and all systems. There's no automate the pacing guide to interact with the calendar, to interact with a lesson, so that you can pace kids in chunks, and some can zoom ahead and they can go over here and they graduate to the next course or class or whatever. But the auto coding forces the intersection live. So you don't have two roles anymore of this is the online kid, this is the live stuff, and the two worlds don't really mix. You're already blending. Now the very next thing is that how do you make it so it's truly, truly personalized? And by pace, not necessarily competency, because that's too hard for most schools to get to. You've done it in your PD, except not with as much human interaction, right? So you're close to this sort of new manifestation that's starting to occur, like in Lammersville ISD, California, some of the charters down by San Diego, School of One, those kinds of guys. But this is the next hardest part. You've atomized content on PD side, but maybe you haven't even started doing that on the regular student side. So that's usually where your next hill is to climb. I'm really proud of you guys. I mean, this is amazing what you've done. I think maybe you think the way you communicate it, hyperdocs is just kind of like it's, we just did it this way. And I think maybe you think it's not that sophisticated. It's sophisticated. It's very sophisticated because you paid so much attention to UI UX, which is huge in the transformation. So I know I said a lot right there, but that flipping structure is the thing that we're watching really closely as Learning Council research, the thing that is so super competitive against all alternatives. Because once you can say this is fully personalized pace pathway, not necessarily totally different pathway, like you're over there studying Egyptology when the other kids are over here on, Mount Vesuvius, that's not the case. It's normalized paths with side eddies and stuff, same as usual, but pace changes. That's the next leap. So I'm going to stop there and hear your comments about where you're at. Hopefully I didn't make you feel like, what?
No, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Right.
It's what a wonderful world that sounds like.
Wow.
And I think we do see like the very, very, very bare basic start to that.
Yeah, you do.
Which we have some of those programs, like iReady and those that kind of have the pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a piece, but it's not necessarily our teachers doing it. It's a program, that with that. But we have at least instilled the idea in them that you don't have to do work at a certain pace with the PD. We have the task menus or the different hyperdocument stations. So I think, yeah, that's a big hill and a lot to think about of how we can continue moving in that direction.
Yeah.
We have the very, very, very root of a beginning.
Mhm.
So we definitely still have a ways to go to call it anything that resembles a true personalized learning.
Yeah.
I would
Because
know what schools are you seeing that are actually there?
Lammersville ISD is the closest in the country.
What is it called?
Lammersville
Lammersville?
ISD. And that the video where Ben Faubert is talking about exactly how he's doing this transformed schedule is coming out tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So because he was just on the California event, he's been on other events with us, and he's an EduJedi Night level. One of only 4 districts in the country that have made it to that level with us, because we're kind of critical, we're just saying. But he talks specifically about that because I kind of like pushed him on it because I know what he's doing. And that's really advanced. There's also, I forget the name of the charter in San Diego. Maybe one of my staff will remind me. Hello.
Right.
Classical Academy in Southern California is a charter attached in San Diego. It's doing something very similar. School of One has got a similar model. But ideally what it is it takes what you've done with PD, the atomization of stair steps, okay? Because it's a check sheet, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then inserts a step that says thou must have this come together moment, and uses what like FedEx and Amazon does with logistics. It says, teacher sets it at 10 students arriving to this point, other ones are slower, they're back here doing their reading or whatever, and says, trigger point, once accumulates to 10, close the cohort, start the next cohort. Once the cohort is closed, trigger to the calendar, notify all calendars, 10 a.m. you're going to be in this room, and the ones that aren't physically here are going to come in via remote.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? This is Uberization.
Okay.
And that's the next natural evolution, and it's all logistics. It's going from where you're at now, which is blending in the classroom, to taking blending all the way up to the institution-wide level.
Okay.
So that you can 100% personalize, not separate paths, but pace. Because when you do that, here's the gift. Now the students who are Zoom ahead students in math, Zoom ahead, but they're lagging in language. Because you know how they are, right? It's opposite for other kids, blah, blah, blah. Where does teacher attention go now? So that no one gets left behind.
Right.
Not on triaging out the ones who they just think aren't going to make it, so they've spent all their attention on the other 27 and let those other kids fail because they have to like triage. Now, because there's so much more like you can go on your own pace, there's more like I got to use my asynchronous time as a teacher to do what? Catch up.
Okay.
This is real equity, is what we're saying. Because you take a system that's 200 years old, that's built for manufacturing to normalize everybody into one bucket.
Right.
Yeah, that's why we're saying this is where it's going.
Okay.
Because those two things are big. Logistics has to be done right, so it's truly personalized because it has to compete with the consumer world. And 2, equity has to be real.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you guys are very close, and I would like you to pay attention to that and tell me your journey, because you know what Uber can do.
Right.
You know what Amazon and FedEx, if FedEx can get a package anywhere in the world in 24 hours, we can get kids to the right math point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited about what you've done because you've gotten some things right that are really right. Atomization, path, customized and personalized, huge. You didn't create bajillions of paths, you normalized. And that's the step 1. So I also want to say that you've also gone down the road of codifying responsibilities, which is where we went with the EduJedi leadership new standards that are coming out, that are in the dictionary. Hopefully you guys have downloaded the dictionary because we're going to talk about that tomorrow if you can join us. Chris McMurray is the former superintendent of Evergreen, is going to talk about these. ISTE's got their standards. There's other Common Core standards, blah, 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 integration standards. There's enough standards to save everybody, but these are responsibilities. And one of the sets of them is UI UX, and you're nailing it.
Mm.
So it's probably going to validate you more than anything else. Just, there are things to know, not things to train on necessarily. But I think you're doing really, really good. So what are you, as I've said what I've said, what are you thinking is your next year's worth of work? Are you still going to think like you're probably still going to play catch up for a while? But what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. Actually, I'm clueless. And the reason I said that is our kids are coming back. They
Mhm.
haven't come back yet, but they're coming back in 2 weeks. And I'm just interested to see how that's going to look. And then maybe collect some data as to what that looks like, and then go forward as to what the next step's going to be.
Yeah. I want to tell you something that I'm hearing from some of the schools that have gone back already, like in Texas and Florida.
Mhm.
You need 2 weeks of grief.
That's
There is a moment, like it's like when you're away from your family for a really long time. The first day and a half of being together with them for the holiday is just like, it's a sense of relief. You might actually sleep in,
Mhm.
because you're so comfortable now to be around people you love.
Yeah.
And trust me, this happens to me when I go back to see my mom in Minnesota. And you go through, you're going to have to talk to your counselors. You go through stages, and you're going to see that, because the schools in New York saw that even with the kids who were out for a little while, but then they had to be in because their parents were home first responders. So they had to socially distance, and all the rest of the kids weren't allowed back, but those ones, right? They talk most about this. There is an arc of coming backness. It's almost like you just landed on another planet. So just one thing to know.
We talked about that a little bit today of we shouldn't really teach, I mean, loosely
Mhm.
for a couple of weeks and really allow for, that to come back together. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's like orientation week.
Yes.
This is a wall. This is your room. This is the clocker, right? Like, where am I? What?
These are people that, in 3D.
Yeah, you get to put on real pants now, and
Absolutely.
it's going to be awesome. Yeah. So and have fun. I just want you guys to have fun,
Right.
rejoice in the joy of other humans, kind of a thing. I'm sure you're going to have fun. I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall, but I know you won't let me come there because I'd have to go through an airport and possibly pick up viruses. So anyway, so this is really cool. I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you have a team. It's like not just one of you, like poor Nick, who's had to be alone until he got like one other person part-time, poor Nick. But it's really fun. And so is there anything else you want to share, like of your journey this last year?
I want to talk about teamwork.
Yeah.
So and I hope they help me out a little bit.
Teamwork's great.
Yeah. So hope that door's closed. We're kind of, not to toot our own horn, but we're kind of the gold standard of what effective teams look like in our district. We've spent so much time together, and we've done, we did those corny little personality tests and, what's your strength and what's my weakness. But we actually used those results as if it was like science almost, and said, hey, Andrea, she's fantastic with people, which is something I'm not as good at. So when we have something that's people facing, Andrea might take the lead on that, and I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. I just know that's her strength, and it helps the entire team as a whole. So I think it's really brought us closer.
Yeah.
Even though, some days we might want to strangle each other slightly, but it really sets an example for everyone else kind of around us of, it is possible to like each other and work with each other at the same time.
Right.
It makes work so much more enjoyable, but it also, benefits the district immensely when you see us as a united front, or, practicing vulnerability in front of teachers or students or our superintendent. We're not perfect. We don't pretend to be perfect. We just are here to do the best that we can. So,
if we weren't able to work together as a team, just the amounts that we were kind of relied upon as the digital learning team, I don't think we could have in any way been successful as a district. I mean, if we were fragmented, we are networked to, half the elementaries are mine, half for Jeramie's, Andrew's got all the secondaries. If we were just all out doing our own thing and, one building looks like this, one building looks like that, I don't think we would have gotten anywhere. So just, our ability to kind of work together, coalesce, everybody, works the same, one band, one sound, I think was really what made us successful overall.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, good. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here, you guys. I'm proud of you and I'm thanking you very much. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep evolving. Rejoice when you come back together. Tomorrow we're going to have, I'm showing on screen right now who's going to be joining us from the region. Tomorrow we've got Ivy Nelson from Belton, and then some share and lunch and learns. And then Chris McMurray is going to go over the new standards and the brand new dictionary we just put out. And then Dr. Shelley Willow from Rockwood. And we're ending the day with two superintendents, one from Piper, one from Blue Valley, Dr. Jessica Dane and Dr. Tonya Merrigan. It's going to be fun. Want to thank you guys very much for being with us, as well as everybody else that was here with us today. It looks like Teresa gave us a nice comment. She was just Teresa Lessert was complimenting you guys. And then I want to finish off with just saying thanks to all our sponsors. We couldn't do this as Learning Council, News Media, and Research without our sponsors, getting these get-together moments and sharing, if it wasn't for these guys. So it's ClassLink, Trevera, No Story, Scholastic, Mobile Mind, Renaissance, Lightspeed, Identity Automation, and Florida Virtual School. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks everyone for being with us. Thanks again, Kansas City.